Elias floated through the dimly lit corridors of Virelia Station, hands stuffed into the pockets of his slightly wrinkled jumpsuit, muttering under his breath about the absurdity of having to recalibrate the graviton stabilizers for the third time that week. The station's AI, which had apparently decided that passive-aggressive humor was its new favorite pastime, flickered to life in his peripheral vision. "Good morning, Elias. Your coffee replicator is still empty. Would you like me to scold it or attempt a motivational speech?" Elias sighed, kicking lightly at the floor panel. "Try the motivational speech. If it fails, we'll schedule an exorcism later." He didn't wait for the AI's reply, because the last time it had attempted an exorcism, it had reprogrammed the cleaning drones to dance in perfect synchronization, something that had been mildly amusing until they cornered him in the observation deck, waving mops like fencing foils. He had just begun tinkering with the graviton controls when she appeared. At first, he thought it was a trick of the light or some leftover hallucination from the previous night's sleep deprivation. But no, she was real. Lyra leaned against the railing with her arms crossed, her elongated ears twitching slightly. The twitching wasn't alarming. No, it was captivating, hypnotic almost. Elias had seen a lot of extraordinary things in his years cataloging cosmic anomalies, but nothing quite like someone who looked human, and yet so undeniably alien at the same time. Her ears flicked like delicate antennae, catching a non-existent rhythm in the station's hum. "Are you always this cheerful in zero gravity, or is it a special occasion?" Elias asked, raising an eyebrow. Lyra tilted her head, a playful curve on her lips. "I consider it a talent. You should try it sometime, though your clumsiness might ruin the effect." He made a face at her, floating sideways to avoid knocking over a grav field regulator. "Right, because tripping over a flux capacitor has always been my crowning achievement." They were supposed to be on opposite sides of a formal inspection team. Lyra's presence was technically a breach of protocol. Officially, her species was under diplomatic observation, and humans weren't exactly encouraged to fraternize with them. Unofficially, Elias found the thought of her teasing smirk far more interesting than any protocol or procedure. "Have you been hiding from someone?" he asked, trying to sound casual while avoiding another graviton mishap. "Depends on your definition of someone." Lyra twirled one finger in the air, and the tip of her ear glimmered faintly with bioluminescent light. "If it's boring humans with clipboard tendencies, then yes, entirely hiding." Elias laughed, the sound echoing softly against the metallic walls. He was acutely aware that laughter on a space station often sounded alarmingly like a scream in the vastness of space, which made him feel self-conscious enough to float backward and bump into a supply crate. "Right, I'm thoroughly boring," he muttered, rubbing his shoulder. Lyra's eyes sparkled and her ears twitched in amusement. "That's not true. You're entertaining in a unique way." She flicked a hand at a nearby console, sending a small cluster of data orbs swirling around them, hovering like mischievous fireflies. "Though if you trip on another flux coil, I may have to report it as a safety hazard." "Threats now, huh? I thought we were bonding," Elias said, mock offense in his voice as he caught one of the orbs, which surprisingly contained a tiny holographic projection of a cat chasing a comet. "I'm a multidimensional being. Bonding can include threats." Her grin widened. "Also, interspecies humor is subtle. Humans tend to overreact." The graviton stabilizer sparked faintly under his hands, reminding Elias of the more mundane perils of station life. "Subtle," she says, "while I'm about to create a miniature black hole in Section 3. He leaned over the console, muttering calculations in a stream of numbers that sounded like gibberish to anyone but him. Lyra watched, half enthralled, half amused, as he juggled between quantum physics and the occasional sarcastic comment about his own incompetence. As days passed, their encounters became almost ritualistic. Elias would accidentally trigger some station hazard: a zero-gravity mop tornado, a rogue cleaning drone armed with laser pointers, or a minor power fluctuation that caused lights to flicker in cosmic Morse code, and Lyra would appear, offering help with a wink or a teasing remark. She demonstrated abilities that both startled and delighted him, manipulating small energy fields to float objects, projecting illusions that made the corridors appear as if they were flowing with liquid light, or even playing pranks like replacing his morning coffee with a glowing orb that hummed a cheerful tune. Despite the humor, there was an undeniable tension beneath the surface. Every glance, every touch, every playful scolding carried with it the dangerous thrill of the forbidden. Elias knew that human authorities would frown on his growing attachment, and Lyra's people would expect her to maintain distance. But the universe had a way of ignoring such regulations when it came to hearts in zero gravity. One night, during a particularly spectacular meteor shower visible from the station's observation deck, Elias found himself floating next to Lyra, both of them drifting in silence as the cosmos erupted in fiery streaks of light. Her ears shimmered with the reflection, casting ethereal patterns across her face. She turned to him, eyes luminous with a mix of mischief and something deeper, something that made him feel simultaneously heroic and utterly foolish. "You know," she said softly, "this is a very human way to flirt, staring at the sky and pretending it's the most important thing in the universe." Elias laughed. "It's effective, though. I mean, look at us, completely ignoring protocols, risking careers and possibly our lives, just to stare at burning rocks." Lyra's laugh was musical, a sound that seemed to linger in the gravity-neutral air long after it left her lips. She nudged him playfully and her ears flicked. "You take life too seriously, Elias. I prefer chaos with occasional charm." He shook his head, feeling a warmth in his chest that had nothing to do with station heating systems. "I think I prefer chaos with occasional aliens, if it comes to that." The storm outside intensified, meteors streaking like wild brushstrokes across the black canvas of space. Elias felt an almost dizzying mix of awe, humor, and longing, and he realized that the universe, in its infinite indifference, had delivered him an enigma wrapped in laughter, danger, and ears that twitched when she was amused. Lyra glanced at him, her gaze both teasing and serious, and he knew, without words, that the line they were crossing wasn't just about species or regulations. It was about desire, curiosity, and the reckless joy of discovering someone who could simultaneously make him laugh and break every rule he had ever lived by. The AI's voice chimed in somewhere behind them. "Reminder, unauthorized interactions may cause interstellar incidents. Would you like me to add sarcasm to the warning?" Elias groaned and muttered, "Not necessary." Lyra meet bureaucracy, bureaucracy meet Lyra. She laughed, ears twitching, and Elias felt something stir inside him. A dangerous, thrilling, beautiful kind of sin, wrapped in alien elegance and cosmic mischief. And for the first time in his carefully measured life, he didn't want to stop floating. Elias woke to the faint hum of the station's energy core, the kind of low vibration that made the hairs on the back of his neck tingle like tiny electric currents. He rubbed his eyes, muttering something about the universe conspiring to ruin his sleep schedule, and realized immediately that someone had moved his coffee replicator again. Not the usual harmless misplacement. This time it hovered midair, glowing with an unsettlingly cheerful blue light. "Lyra," he grumbled, recognizing the signature prankscape of her presence before he even saw her. She was perched lightly on a railing, one long ear twitching like a radar dish, a smug grin curling at the edges of her lips. "You've outdone yourself this time. My coffee isn't supposed to double as a levitating nightlight." "Ah, but it's so much more fun this way," she said, floating over in zero gravity with a grace that defied physics. Her long hair floated behind her like a comet tail. "Besides, it hums a little tune. Try it." Elias grabbed the cup reluctantly, only for it to belt out a tiny rendition of the station's emergency alarm. He yelped and flung it across the corridor, where it bounced off a wall and hovered serenely in the air. This is why humans were never meant to have alien friends, or coffee that sings. Lyra laughed, her ears flicking in delight. Sing along next time, or don't, it's your chaotic choice. The morning's minor chaos turned into the day's pattern. Errands, experiments, and the occasional gravity anomaly courtesy of Lyra's subtle manipulations. She had a knack for bending minor station protocols without anyone noticing, changing air currents, redirecting tiny energy pulses, even making light fixtures blink Morse code messages that read Elias is adorable but slow. He had to admit, despite his human stubbornness, that her creativity was oddly inspiring. By mid-afternoon, they found themselves in the observation deck, watching an asteroid belt drift past the station like a glittering cosmic river. Elias had brought along a small holographic chess set, though Lyra promptly turned the pawns into tiny starships, each with its own improbable trajectory and blinking lights. I call this variation galactic annihilation, she said, and proceeded to outmaneuver him in a way that made his human logic feel quaint. You cheat, he protested, swatting at a rook that was now zooming around the room in an arc that defied Newtonian physics. Rules are relative, she said with a wink, her ears flicking like antennae. Besides, if you lose, you buy me a quantum donut. Elias groaned. I don't even know if quantum donuts are edible, and you're betting them. Lyra laughed again, the sound filling the observation deck with a warmth that made him forget the looming bureaucratic consequences of their camaraderie. She leaned closer, eyes sparkling as she traced the lines of his face with her fingertips, not intrusive, not frightening, just deliberate. Her touch left behind a faint shimmer, like residual energy from a solar flare. You're ridiculous, he said softly, trying to mask the way his chest tightened. Completely ridiculous. And you, she countered, are predictably human, in every delightfully boring way. She flicked a hand, and the chess pieces floated into a tiny formation resembling a spaceship dogfight, complete with animated explosions that left Elias shaking his head in amused disbelief. Hours passed like this, a dance of mild disasters and laughter punctuated by stolen glances and subtle touches. When the station's alarms finally blared, a false reading of an external hull breach, they scrambled through corridors, Elias muttering sarcastic commentary about life choices while Lyra flipped switches with effortless precision, making the emergency lights do an impromptu disco routine. At one point, they encountered a cleaning drone armed with a mop that seemed unusually aggressive. Elias froze and Lyra smirked. Step aside, she said. One flick of her hand, and the drone floated backward in a comical pirouette, then hovered like a confused ballerina. All clear, she declared. Elias, still half panicked, gave her a look that made her laugh so hard her ears shimmered again. Evenings on the station carried a different rhythm. Gravity-neutral lounges, once dull and sterile, transformed under Lyra's influence into playful playgrounds. Objects hovered in improbable configurations, lights danced in cascading colors, and holographic projections of alien landscapes flickered across walls. Elias sometimes wondered if the station itself had become alive, taking cues from her energy and bending the rules of physics just to accommodate their antics. One night, as they drifted together through a corridor lined with observation windows, a meteor shower streaked across the black expanse outside. Elias pointed, whispering, "You think anyone else ever gets to see this without worrying about career-ending violations?" Lyra tilted her head, ears flicking, a soft glow pulsing from them in time with the meteors. "I doubt it. Which is why we must savor it dangerously." She floated closer, brushing a hand against his arm in a gesture that sent an electric shiver through him. "You realize that every shared glance, every touch, is a risk. Intergalactic diplomacy frowns on this sort of thing." "Yeah, well," he said, heart racing, "I've never been one for diplomacy when it comes to this." He gestured vaguely at the glowing streaks outside, then back at her. "This, you." Lyra's laughter was soft now, teasing but intimate. Bold words for a human who almost flung his breakfast across the station. "I did that on purpose," he said, trying and failing to sound confident. To impress you. She floated closer, ears twitching in amusement. Your methods are unconventional, but I'll admit effective. Their bond deepened in ways both thrilling and ridiculous. Elias found himself relying on her for survival skills he never knew he needed, navigating energy fluxes, improvising with alien tech, and understanding subtle manipulations of reality he had previously dismissed as impossible. And Lyra found herself entertained, sometimes frustrated, often intrigued by the absurdly persistent human, who insisted on thinking he was in control of anything in a zero-gravity station, run by someone who could manipulate physics as casually as breathing. Yet, amidst all the jokes, the games, and the chaos, there were moments of undeniable clarity. Moments when the universe seemed to pause, letting them share a connection that transcended species, logic, or protocol. Elias caught himself staring at her ears, how they glowed faintly when she laughed, how they twitched when she was thinking or scheming, and realized that he was utterly, irrevocably fascinated. The day ended with them perched on the outer observation balcony, feet dangling over the edge of the station, staring into the star-strewn void. Lyra rested her head against his shoulder, ears flicking in contentment, and whispered, "You humans are persistent, I'll give you that." "I learned from the best," he replied, glancing at her, trying to mask the way his chest tightened. "Chaos and charm, I think I can manage both with you." She laughed softly, the sound mingling with the low hum of the station's systems. "Careful, human, these moments are dangerous. Beautiful but dangerous, you may never be the same." Elias smiled, a mixture of sarcasm, awe, and a hint of surrender. "Then I guess I'm already lost." And somewhere deep in the station's core, the AI muttered, "Warning, unauthorized emotional entanglement detected. Recommend sarcasm or quantum donuts." Elias groaned. Lyra laughed. They floated together into the night, the stars stretching infinitely before them, and the universe seemed to wink, conspiring in their favor, even if no one else would ever approve. Elias awoke to the faint vibration of the station's hull, the kind of vibration that could either be a minor quirk of interstellar drift or an unannounced meteor impact. He squinted at the artificial sunlight streaming through the observation window, only to find Lyra already awake, hovering lazily in zero gravity, her elongated ears flicking in perfect sync with her slow, teasing smile. "Morning, sleepy human," she said, voice smooth, teasing, and slightly dangerous. "You've overslept again." "I did not oversleep," Elias replied, still groggy. "I was performing a highly advanced sleep study on the effects of meteor showers on human consciousness." Lyra floated closer, ears twitching with amusement. "Ah, yes, of course. The classic human excuse. Somehow I think the AI already filed that under lies likely to cause galactic incidents." He muttered something under his breath and shuffled toward the coffee replicator, only to find it levitating above the counter again, humming an off-key rendition of what he assumed was a spacefolk song. "Lyra," he said, exasperated, "did you do this again?" Her grin widened. "It's called motivational acoustics, Elias. You should try it sometime. Also, I may have added a tiny gravitational fluctuation for extra effect. It's good for character building." He groaned. "Character building, right? And next you'll tell me it also improves my love life." "Depends on who you're trying to impress," she said, hovering closer. Her ears twitched, glowing faintly with bioluminescence that pulsed softly like starlight. Elias could feel it in his chest, an odd warmth, a mixture of anxiety, thrill, and anticipation he had never experienced before. The station's intercom buzzed, announcing an incoming inspection team. Elias groaned. "Here we go, galactic bureaucrats and their shining clipboards coming to ruin all our fun." Lyra floated toward him, touching his shoulder lightly. "We'll be fine, just follow my lead." And follow her lead he did. They maneuvered through corridors, outsmarting the inspection drones with playful misdirections. Gravity fields inverted here, a holographic duplicate of Lyra dancing through the hallway there. Elias marveled at her control over the station, her ability to bend minor laws of physics for maximum entertainment without setting off actual alarms. He realized then that she had taught him more about improvisation, courage, and the absurdity of taking life too seriously than any training manual ever could. Hours later, when the inspectors finally departed, Lyra leaned against the observation deck railing, smirking. See, a little chaos, a little charm. Humans might actually have a future if they pay attention to the right teachers. Elias laughed, floating to her side. And here I thought the future depended on strict protocols and risk assessments. Turns out, it's about ear-twitching and levitating coffee. The universe outside stretched infinitely, stars streaking past the station as if eager to participate in their small rebellion. Elias realized that his once predictable, measured life had been irrevocably altered. He had learned to embrace uncertainty, to find humor even when danger lurked, and to cherish fleeting, impossible moments that defied rules and expectations. But even as laughter filled the corridors, the weight of reality pressed down. Lyra's people had demanded her return to her home planet, a political duty she could not shirk indefinitely. And human authorities, though amused by the inspector's reports of harmless anomalies, had begun to notice patterns that might have consequences if left unchecked. Elias knew that staying together meant risking everything, yet the thought of letting her go filled him with a quiet desperation he hadn't known he could feel. Lyra floated closer, ears flicking with a soft glow. Elias, this is the part where either we panic or we improvise. I vote for improvisation. He smirked despite the tension. Improvisation, huh? You know, for humans, that usually means a small disaster followed by a minor existential crisis. Perfect, she said. Just like old times. Only now stakes are higher and coffee may spontaneously combust. Exciting, right? Together, they navigated the station one last time, performing an orchestrated dance of minor chaos, recalibrating energy conduits to produce a dazzling light show for the departing diplomats, gently misdirecting security drones, and floating through zero-gravity corridors while cracking jokes about intergalactic etiquette and the AI's increasingly passive-aggressive humor. Every movement, every laugh, every touch was a testament to the bond they had formed, a love that was playful, dangerous, and brilliantly alive. As the station prepared for the jump to the edge of their sector, Lyra took his hand. Elias, the universe isn't going to stop being complicated, but maybe we don't have to face it alone. He squeezed her hand back, a surge of resolve coursing through him. Then let's not. We'll face whatever comes, chaotic coffee meteors and all, together. The jump initiated, stars streaking into elongated lines, painting the station in colors humans had no names for. For a brief, breathtaking moment, the universe seemed to pause with them, acknowledging their defiance of rules, gravity, and expectations. Elias laughed, feeling the exhilaration of being alive, of loving without hesitation, of sharing impossibly intimate, impossible moments with someone who was not entirely human but entirely indispensable. When the station emerged from the jump into a quiet sector of space, they drifted toward the observation deck. Lyra's ears twitched, reflecting the faint shimmer of distant nebulae. "Do you ever wonder," she said softly, "if anyone else will ever understand what this is?" Elias thought for a moment, floating in the soft glow of alien starlight. "Maybe, but I don't think we need anyone else. We've learned the rules, broken the rules, and laughed at the universe long enough to know that we make our own meaning. And honestly," he added, glancing at her, "I wouldn't trade a single chaotic second of it." Lyra's smile softened, and she rested her head lightly against his shoulder. Then it settled. Chaos, charm, and coffee-induced near-death experiences forever. Elias laughed, a deep, rich sound that echoed through the station. "Forever, huh? I think I can manage that." The station's AI chimed in with its usual dry wit. "Warning. Ongoing emotional entanglement may have intergalactic repercussions. Recommend sarcasm or quantum donuts." Elias rolled his eyes, smirking. Quantum donuts it is. They floated together in the soft glow of distant stars, laughter mingling with the hum of the station, knowing that the universe, in all its vastness and indifference, had gifted them something rare. A love that was audacious, impossible, and entirely theirs. And for the first time, Elias understood that embracing chaos, humor, and the unknown wasn't just exhilarating. It was the most beautiful sin he had ever committed. The station, the cosmos, and the improbable romance between human and alien seemed to settle into a quiet equilibrium, a perfect balance of danger, laughter, and trust. Elias had changed. No longer merely a cautious observer of the universe, he was a participant, a creator of unpredictable moments, a lover unafraid of consequences. And Lyra, ever radiant, ever mischievous, had found a partner who could match her chaos while grounding her in the human heart. The universe stretched endlessly, but for Elias and Lyra, it had become intimate, navigable, and laughably, gloriously theirs. They drifted in silence, punctuated by soft jokes, occasional nudges, and the gentle flicker of alien ears, knowing that whatever the cosmos held next, they would face it together, undaunted, irreverent, and in love. And somewhere in the station's core, the AI sighed. Humans, aliens, romance, chaos. Seriously, who programs this? Elias laughed again, entwining his fingers with hers. We do, he said. We do. The stars outside streaked like liquid light, and for the first time the universe didn't feel so indifferent. It felt alive, aware, and entirely, breathtakingly theirs.